Hello, listeners. We are back on the Erectile Dysfunction Radio Podcast. Masturbating while in a relationship is the topic on today's episode of our podcast. So again, these are topics that we've found that men and their partners are discussing, be it we see things on Reddit, we see things that come into the erectioniq.com inbox. So today's topic is about masturbating while in a relationship. So let's remind listeners as to what your role entails as both a sex therapist and a couples therapist. Mark, before I dive into today's topic, can you just remind us?
Yeah, no problem, Casey. So I work with couples and individuals. I do couples therapy both around connection, communication issues, as well as couples sexual issues, including discrepancies in desire and sexual dysfunction. With individuals, we work with anxiety, depression, a slew of other mental health issues, as well as sexual dysfunction, and in particular, for men, we kind of focus in on erectile dysfunction and ejaculatory disorders.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you that just to establish your expertise on today's topic. I feel like you would be a great person to chime in on this one. So here's the hypothetical situation. A man is masturbating in a relationship. Perhaps he sneaks off and the man gets caught, so to speak, in the bathroom or something like that, masturbating to porn. Pornography has never been more prevalent in our society, so I think this is a very real situation. So the man is caught viewing porn or maybe just masturbating, and then his partner kind of naturally takes offense, saying things like, why would you do that when you have, you know, a loving partner right here that you could be having sex with? So I think this does happen. What's your take on this? Have you ever worked with someone where this happened, or how would you approach a couple that came to you with this scenario?
So this is a great and very relevant, complex question. So let's take this step by step, if that's okay. So first and foremost, let me kind of give my stance on masturbation generally. This is considered a healthy way to express one's sexuality. It is quite common that people who are in relationships do engage in solo sexual activity. And what I have found is there is a wide range of relationships in terms of how they react to this reality. Some relationships, it's totally out there in the open and it's understood, and neither partner takes any issue with that. In other situations, one partner masturbating is done in total secrecy. So there's going to be a wide range of how relationships respond and react to all of this. I think, Casey, in your question, this was if a partner takes offense.
Mm-hmm.
So let me say this. First and foremost, whenever possible, communicating about sexual wants, sexual preferences, sexual needs, and sexual behaviors is the ideal. I think it helps to create realistic expectations, to process them through. I know that there's an adage that it's easier to get forgiveness than it is to get permission. While that may be true, I think that when it comes to couples, I think that creates a tremendous amount of conflict and potentially gets the seeds of mistrust sown into a relationship. And that, to me, is a big challenge. So even if it is a difficult conversation up front, I think that people should be looking to do that. Certainly, if you're establishing a relationship, two people coming from different backgrounds, different previous experiences, I think it's a worthwhile tip to have those conversations, to set those expectations from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
All that being said, I recognize that the overwhelming majority of people do not do that. And people end up in relationships, they end up moving in with each other, cohabitating, long before this becomes a topic of conversation. The challenge that you're describing becomes when a partner takes offense to this. And even within that statement of takes offense, I've seen a wide range of what taking offense means. There are some partners who equate this with infidelity. They believe that this is the same thing as if their partner went out and met somebody else and engaged in partner sexual activity with them. Other partners take offense to the secrecy and the hiding and say, I would rather you have been upfront with me and tell me about this. I don't like us not having secrets. And you're going to see a range of how people respond and react to this.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, go ahead.
I was just going to say the old adage, it's the crime. The crime wasn't the problem, it was the cover-up or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's adages in both directions. And what I found is that, it's the cover-up afterwards tends to be a bigger problem. That being said, it's not a simple conversation. I want to acknowledge that. It is vulnerable, and it can feel uncomfortable and awkward for many people to have that conversation. But I do think that it prevents some potential damage because mistrust becomes, I think, one of the most difficult things to root out of a relationship once that sets in.
Got it. Okay. So we've talked before about infidelity, and when a partner cheats on another partner, that relationship in some cases is never the same. Sexual problems, erectile dysfunctions could be the next thing that happens. Do you think this is the same kind of situation? If you get caught masturbating, it harms the relationship?
So again, I mean, it's hard to paint with broad strokes. I think, though, if you are in a situation where you are getting caught, there is a significant potential to lead to sexual dysfunction, certainly in a partnered setting.
Okay.
People need to feel safe. They need to feel comfortable. If a man is now looking over at his partner and wondering, well, what are they thinking about me? Are they now upset at me? If I don't perform well, are they going to blame it on my masturbation or whatnot? So I think that can open up a relationship or an interpersonal anxiety that can lead to overthinking partner sexual activity and ultimately lead to sexual dysfunction.
And based on past conversations we've had on this podcast, Mark, I think it's safe to say you have a long-time stance that masturbation in of itself is healthy. Now, am I wrong? Am I wrong there?
I think it's generally a correct statement. At the same time, I think people who choose to not engage in masturbation is healthy as well. I don't think, when I use the word healthy, I mean it's not unhealthy. That's not to say that one is better than the other. Mm-hmm. So I think whatever approach men or people in general choose to take, I think either way can certainly be a healthy activity.
Okay, and does any of that dynamic change if the partner is taking offense to that, or the partner is saying, hey, I'm not sure I like you masturbating, going off in the corner over there and masturbating, when I would much rather be included in that sexual encounter?
So I don't think it changes anything in terms of the physiological health that a person experiences. But clearly, I mean, if this is a general rule in a relationship, there are many things that individuals do that are not a problem per se, but it creates a problem for a partner. And I think as part of being in a relationship, a partner has a right to voice what isn't working for them. I encourage that to be done in a non-critical, understanding, and empathic way. But a partner is entitled to feel however they feel about this, and that can lead to a conversation. So I do not think that a man who wants to engage in masturbation should turn to their partner and say, well, this is healthy, and you're just being rigid, or you're just prude. I think that leads to, again, a sowing of a lack of empathy and a lack of understanding, because this carries meaning to a partner. That partner may struggle with their own feelings of inadequacy, and this feels like an affront to the relationship. So if you care about your partner, there's got to be a way to talk about this that is predicated on, it's built on empathy and understanding.
Got it. And these topics, probably best discussed between partners, but in reality, in practice, it's really difficult. That's a really difficult conversation. You're having breakfast and you just slide in. Are you okay that I masturbate in this relationship? Like, it's not an everyday conversation. What do you think about that? I mean, how do you broach these things?
I agree. It is very, very challenging. More often than not, what I see is that these conversations are taking place in the therapist office. I recognize that people are not going to go see a therapist just to talk about masturbation. Mm-hmm. That's not likely to be the outcome. These are very difficult conversations. A suggestion that I can make for somebody who wants to figure out what is the angle to even get the conversation started is to talk about it just generically. Talk about masturbation. What are your thoughts about masturbation as a general construct? There's a lot of complexity because it is a totally normal, healthy human activity for both men and women. And at the same time, it certainly is associated with shame and guilt, embarrassment for many people. So I think if you're not ready to have a direct conversation, hey, this is what I do, what do you feel about this? Yeah. Talk about it just generically. Try to understand where your partner is at with that. I think people might be surprised that some of the assumptions that they're making about how their partner feels about things may not be correct.
Fair. Very fair. Mark Goldberg, certified sex therapist, joining us for today's conversation about masturbating while in a relationship here on the Erectile Dysfunction Radio Podcast. Do you have any other final thoughts or anything you'd like to add?
So I think that this is a conversation that is unique to each couple. I will encourage anybody listening to this podcast to not use anything that I say or anything that you find on the internet as ammunition to advocate why your position is the right position. Both positions are understandable to me. I can totally get how a person wants to engage in solo sexual activity and partnered sexual activity, and I can also understand how a partner may feel that really everything should be happening in a partnered setting, and they feel that their partner engaging in masturbation is an affront. The more understanding you can be about where your partner is coming from, the better a relationship you're going to have. And that, to me, is far more important, and I think will lead to much better outcomes than whether or not you've convinced your partner or your partner has convinced you about what is right and what is wrong.
If you listen to this podcast regularly, you know there is a huge mental component that goes into achieving an erection. Mark Goldberg, the certified sex therapist who hosts this podcast, felt as though this was a very underserved topic of education in men's health. That's why he designed Beyond the Little Blue Pill, the thinking man's guide to addressing ED. The course is designed to educate and fundamentally help you change the way you think about erections. Check it out at erectioniq.com/course. You can explore 3 modules of this course completely free. See if there's something in there that can help you. erectioniq.com/course, and you can learn more there.